to Vacation Station, hosted by Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazines.com.
Hey, everybody. It is Vacation Station time here on Big Blend Radio. And you know what? It's the fourth Tuesday of the month. Well, you could be listening to this anytime, but this is the time when we catch up with travel writer Debbie Stone. We call her the Fire Monkey because she is a fire monkey. She got that name when she was in Bhutan for a good reason. And she likes to hop around the globe, across the country. And today she is joining us to talk about Portugal. She took a 4-day self-guided trip to Lisbon, like my bucket list city, right? And she went to Sintra. This is an amazing journey. You can see her article up on blendradioandtv.com, but the link is in the radio show notes. So no matter how you're listening, go look at it in the show notes. It's there. But welcome back, Fire Monkey. I am just fighting at the bit to talk about this. And I'm also very green with envy. I can't help it. I'm sorry. I've got a downfall of jealousy on this, but welcome back. I do.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here. No, I'm curious why it's always been on your bucket list.
The music and the architecture. The music is a big deal.
Yes.
And it was Anthony Bourdain's episode when he went there that really kicked it off. And I have a lot of friends from Portugal, and growing up in South Africa, a lot of my friends were Portuguese. And, but you know, it was, now we have the internet, so we can look at articles like yours, listen to podcasts, watch videos. And back, when I was in school, you had to get the old crusty book off the school bookshelf. And I was still fascinated by, the photos were almost going into sepia because nothing lasted, dust off things. Right. But then it was like, I want to go. I've just had this incredible thing to go there. And I think I think coastal areas are always fascinating because it brings in a lot of different people and culture. And it just looks like where you went. I haven't seen the photos like what you brought home to the States for all of us to see and around the world. You went places that I didn't even know Portugal had. We're going to be talking more on the next episode as well about the Azores that you went to. Or is it Azores or Azores? I got to say this right.
It's actually, if you pronounce it in Portuguese, it's Açores.
Ah, wow.
So it's the Azores Islands. So I learned that because I kept calling them the Azores, and every time people would look at me quizzically, and they were like, the Açores. So so that's something to practice in the meantime. But
I'll get there. But Lisbon and Sintra. Lisbon and Sintra.
And you'll find that, and Portugal as itself is one of the oldest countries in Europe, actually. But, Lisbon being the capital city and the largest city in Portugal has a very colorful history. And it's basically 20 centuries of history. And, it's just one of those destinations. It's so lively. It's vibrant. It's got this wonderful cultural tapestry. The food is incredible. And the sights are just amazing. I mean, I only spent a couple days in each of these places, Lisbon and Sintra. I've been to Portugal before. Had never been to either of these two places, but had been to Porto and the Douro Wine Valley and several other places. But, Lisbon is the kind of place that you can spend many days in and still, probably not see everything. But in the time that I had, I tried to see as much as I could what I wanted to see, the attractions that I thought should be highlighted, and personal things that I wanted to do and see. So I think for me, as I mentioned in the story, doing a self-guided trip is my type of vacation. I love doing walking trips and trips where I can go at my own pace and see what I want to see. But that also, as I mentioned, takes an enormous amount of time and research to put that together. So this one company that I went with is called InnTravel, and they are known for slow vacation travel in terms of, self-guided adventures all around Europe and, on and off the beaten track. And you can do, cycling, there's skiing, there's snowshoeing, you can do it by foot, by boat, whatever. And they provide you with such detailed information, route notes, maps, everything. And, they book the accommodations and they do a lot for you. And then it's in your hands as to what you want to do, based on all this material that they've given you. So it was really nice to have all that material and to have not, had to spend all the time to get it all together. It was great. And then I could just say, hey, I want to go here. I want to go there. I want to go here. And, with all the maps and routes and directions, I mean, it made things so much easier. And it was I really appreciated, having all that information.
I think it's great because it's slow travel, like you say, and in travel. So that means they're working within. So it's kind of this small business. Again, we always talk about this authentic travel, and these companies really have to work together with the different places. And if people aren't workable, well, we don't really want to stay with them. You know what I mean? It's kind of, you know what I mean?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Well,
it's about people that are coming together over a common cause of, hey, come be a visitor, have an authentic experience. You do good to our land, we're going to do good to you too. It's kind of that bond, right?
And I think it's basically, making connections with people and, places, and, they choose boutique style types of hotels in interesting locations. And so you have more of a unique experience and, like you said, an authentic experience. And along with all the notes that they provide you with, route maps and all the attractions, they also give you notes of, cultural notes and, things that are important to know. And, if you bother to read them, which, most people do, because they provide an insight into the culture or into the food and what you can eat, not only where you can go. And so to me, that is just such a wonderful resource to have.
I love it. I love it because I know that you love working with people that know what's going on so that you don't waste your time once you get there.
Exactly.
Especially Portugal, and you're going overseas. And I think about all of our traveler audience. When you go overseas, you want to, be able to make the most of it and not waste your time. And these companies really do kind of help get into that. And so you did like a self-guided walking trip. This is kind of like what you've done in Wales and in places like that before that we've talked about on shows. I love this. So your lodging, they were all inns, correct? Like all of the from what I was
these were
reading.
they were big boutique style properties.
I love it.
Exactly.
I love it.
And so the one in Lisbon, we stayed basically within the castle walls.
That's crazy.
In the old town area, which is so it's got
Seriously,
so much character.
you stayed in
so much history.
That's crazy.
Yes.
The cast you went cast. I mean, I talk about Fire Monkey when she was in Bhutan and she was temple hopping. Now she's castle hopping. I mean, I couldn't believe that. I was reading the article. I'm like, I didn't realize that many castles. But yeah, the royalty thing is a big deal over there.
It's unbelievable. And in Sintra, it used to be the summer mecca for the royalty to have their summer palaces and estates there. So it's like I said in there, it's got all this past of rulers and invasions and destructions and reconstructions, and so there's all of this going on there, and yet a city like Lisbon, they take the old and the traditional and all the history, but they also meld it with the new and the innovations and the contemporary. And forward thinking, and so you do have this wonderful meld, so it really is a wonderful city to visit for so many reasons, not only for the history but for all the other reasons that I mentioned, which is, you go for the food, you go for the people and the ambiance, and all of that.
Now, so Lisbon, let's talk about this, the largest city, right? And
Yes.
oh man, you went there. I'm so jealous. I can't help it. Sorry, I'm just so the architecture. I mean, just going through your photos, reading your article, the architecture. And I can kind of see how Cape Town, South Africa, kind of merged into that and got that architecture and kind of, the roots.
Yeah,
Part of
yeah.
it. Part of it.
There's a lot of Moorish influence in a lot of the architecture because of that whole connection, and so you'll see designs in buildings and even within courtyards. In our hotel, for example, the boutique hotel that we stayed in, the patio or the courtyard had a lot of Moorish designs to it, and so that is one thing that sticks out pretty strongly, I think. But there are so many, there's religious sites to visit, cathedrals. There's the famous Geronimo's Monastery, which is probably one of the top sites in Lisbon. And this is this grand building that is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And the sailors back then who used to explore the world, and Portugal had such a reputation for its maritime, for its exploration of the world, but they were really superstitious, and so they would go and to the monastery and they'd pray with the monks that they would return safely, and that
Wow.
everything would go okay. So this monastery, you can go in there and you tour it, and it's a very decorated church. It has beautiful detail in the stone. It has a cloister that is 2-leveled. It's just astounding, and I do say that some of the top attractions in Lisbon will attract the crowds. And one of the things that I mentioned in my story is the Lisboa card, which is something that's, I think, really important for people to know. You can get it for 24, 48, whatever hours and use it. And not only does it give you free or reduced prices to some of the attractions, but it also gives you unlimited travel on any form of public transportation there, which is so nice because you can hop on a bus, you can hop on a funicular, you can, go on the trams, whatever. And it just makes it so convenient you don't have to think about it.
And that's a thing. I think, you going, that's the role of the travel writer, to give people these important nuggets of really useful information, because Lisbon is popular. And so get the Lisboa card. Am I saying it correctly? I got to get it right. Right.
Correct.
And so do that. And that's going to help you as you go through. But it seems like everywhere you went, on both places, there's just a lot of different neighborhoods, historic neighborhoods and districts. So getting around, did you use more of a GPS? Did you work with InnTravel more for getting your bearings on these areas?
Well, InnTravel provides really great maps, and it also provides route directions from various places, including the hotel that you're at, and wherever if you can pick a neighborhood, and they'll tell you what is there to see there, and how do you get around there, and all of that. And we walk a lot, so I walked a lot, but there are places that were a little bit further, so it was like, okay, we have this Lisboa card, so let's just hop on the tram, hop on the bus, and get there, and then walk around. And it was was very, very convenient to do. The one neighborhood that has got several quite popular attraction is the Belém neighborhood.
Yeah,
and that's where the monastery is, but it's also where this incredible monument to the discoveries is, which looks like a prow of a ship, and it has all the, it's basically celebrating all the explorers and their achievements during, back when Portugal was building its empire. And so, you have all these statues of historical figures that are carved in this monument, and you can go up in it and you can get this incredible view of the area. So that's a wonderful thing to do. And the other thing is the Tower of Belém, which is insane. Built in 1521, and
amazing.
It's just once again has a lot of influence of Moorish art. You climb up through these winding stairs, and then you get to the top. You see the views. It's quite amazing.
The views are insane. But I think,
they?
You think about, Prince Henry, the Navigator. I mean, Henry was like a huge deal in regards to our world of, where we are now. And, it's like, we got to think about these roots. I mean, it's like Marco Polo. Henry is the same, and so you went there. And, I think, South Africa as a kid, Vasco da Gama and all of that. Like
Yes.
Yeah, so this to me again is so close to just my childhood roots that it means so much personally. But you went to a lot of museums too, and that's something I think Portugal is doing really well. And this was it where these were all in the Belém district, right? These museums that
the
people
Coach
can go
National
to.
Coach Museum, which is quite amazing, with a collection of all these royal coaches, like 9,000 objects, dating back to the 16th century. And then there is the Berardo collection, which is an art museum, and the Maritime Museum, which is, if people are really interested in, as I say, Portugal's domination of the seas, then that's, where you're going to go. And the other place in Belém that is very well known is the pastries of Belém, which is this famous bakery where you can try the Portuguese custard tarts. These pastries are very well known, and in particular, I said, on one day they sell 12,000 of these.
Oh my God!
And then on the weekend they sell over 20,000 of them, and it's like, so that the shop has been making them, for over 100 years or whatever more, and so supposedly the recipe is secret, and it comes from that monastery that I mentioned, the Geronimo's monastery. And so I said, I learned that the monks use the egg whites to starch their habits, and they use the egg yolk to make the custards. And so anyway, it's a very popular place, but that is so worthwhile to wait in line and get your tart, your pastry.
I'm going to tell you that Dr. Jackie, our heart expert on Big Blend Radio, is going to say, you got to reverse that. You can only eat the egg whites and throw the yolks out. I'm just saying. She's like, hell no. No, that's not happening. But isn't that interesting? These kinds of ways to do things from the past that we got away from. So when you step into these museums and these places where people are still living and maybe a little bit healthier than America, doesn't that kind of make us think about where we're going in the world with the issues we're facing, that sometimes these older ways of doing things may be better sometimes,
Yeah, I think it's also, when you're doing something, when you go into the shop, you're tasting history. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's
tradition.
As I say, travel is all about using all of your senses. Well, this is, you're tasting history, and it's remarkable to me. And not only that, it's delicious. And to me, it's like it's important to do something like that, because that is it is such a famous place, and it's why not? It's part of the whole experience, And so anyway, I urge people to go in there. Believe me, you'll go in there and you'll be like looking at those cases with the pastries, and you're like, I have to have one of those.
Oh, I'm down. So you went into the old town, like, of Lisbon, which is definitely like part of what I want to do. And this
right,
is
and that's where
that's
where we stayed.
Oh.
Right, this is a beautiful area. We stayed in the castle. We stayed basically within these walls of the St. George's Castle in this lovely boutique hotel. But the old town has got this it's like a rabbit warren of these winding, narrow streets that go way up to the top of the hill where the castle is. And so that in itself is an experience, just to stroll around that whole area.
Oh man, so there you are, like in like a castle, basically. You're within the walls of a castle.
Within the greater walls, right?
Walls, not in the castle itself,
no,
but I mean,
no.
But I mean, it's still old, like where you were. Like that was what, the 1800s? Am I right on that?
Yeah, I think basically it's probably, I think it's even, 18th century, I think is, well, maybe what did I put it? Did I say that it was
Well, the
1800s?
courtyard. Yeah, it's in an inner
yeah.
courtyard of that.
Right.
So that's really
Right.
cool. So like this is amazing. And so the hotel even has its own museum little, showing,
Yeah.
what they had
Where
there.
they found archaeological remains. At the castle they have a whole area where you can. There's a whole archaeological dig site where they're still digging and excavating, and some of these where that hotel was, they also found things. So they have their own little museum. But in the castle itself, there is an exhibit that shows how the castle was actually quote unquote discovered in the late 1930s. It had been left and nobody knew it was around it, but it was hidden within the walls of these barracks, and they discovered it. So it's not been, considering how old this castle was, it's not been that long since it was actually rediscovered, so to speak. But you can climb the ramparts, you can climb up and around the whole area, and the one thing that everybody knows about the castle is that there are peacocks everywhere you go.
Oh,
So they
I love
are
it.
everywhere. They are they are shrieking, they are showing their plumes or feathers, they are walking around, strolling around, and it's even where the hotel that we stayed, we had a resident one that was in the courtyard that would you're sitting there eating your breakfast and it's out there and it decides to show its show off and strut around, and it's a very neat experience.
This is a trip. So I need to get to the music. I can't stand it because I've been jumping up and down this entire time. The Fado, you went to the Fado Museum. Did you hear the Fado music?
Yes.
Yes. Like why this is like the blues music of Portugal in a way, right?
Yes.
When you think of it, it's like opera, but it's like so deep, and it's like soul.
Yes, it's got so much soul. It's really is a national treasure is what they consider it in Portugal. And it's got these melancholy ballads, and they're singing about heartbreaks and being the life of the poor and sailors that have been lost. And so the museum tells the kind of the story from in history, and it has some of the journeys that some of the artists have taken, along with the evolution of how the Portuguese guitar got created. And you can listen. The audio guide is great because it lets you listen to all these different stars, so you can sit there and listen for as long as you want. So it really is quite an amazing museum for people who are really interested. Most people have never even heard of Fado music, or if they have, they're not even sure. Maybe they've heard it once or whatever. But the museum is a deep dive into that.
I think it's so cool. And then the weird thing is, you go into a pharmacy museum, and medical museums are freaky, right? All the implements.
I love them. Yes,
I do too. I'm like, no, you have to have Fado music on while you go through the pharmacy museum. Somebody got killed. It is operatic too.
It's crazy, and this one was amazing. It really was surprising. It's award winning, but it's like kind of a little bit off the beaten path, and didn't have many people at the time I was there visiting. But it was just unbelievable. I mean, they had like 5,000 years of pharmaceutical history on display with these rare artifacts and these amazing, tools that they used, and books where they concealed poison and ancient sarcophaguses. And, they also had like first aid kits used by Shackleton, and, even from the Space Shuttle Endeavour. And so, it was fascinating. I knew it was going to be interesting. I had read about it, and I thought, I really have to go here.
Well, I always thought, like, there's the medicine and the medical museums, but pharmacy on its own, that's a whole other thing. And pharmacists are smart people. They sometimes know what you need to take more than your doctor does, actually. You should have that conversation when you go to that counter, have that conversation with the pharmacist. Absolutely. Because they can look at, are you taking too many of these, and these, are you having too much variety in your medical profile of pills, or whatever it is. But I think that to have just pharmacy as its own is really fascinating to me.
Yeah, it was fabulous.
And when it comes from ancient places, I think that's fascinating even more because they were on the cusp of medicine,
Yeah. Yeah.
becoming
Yeah.
medicine. So,
But for us, we look at some of those things and we're like, oh my God, that's so barbaric. Look at what they used, and
they did. They did it.
It is. It was rudimentary, but from that grew more modern and sophisticated methods and tools.
Thank God our dentistry is not the same. I would absolutely die.
Oh,
I
yeah.
there's not enough. I know they give you whiskey or bourbon or whatever, but
Yeah.
I think I'd rather die than go through half of the stuff people went through. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because you're not in it,
Yeah.
right? But you can just
Yeah.
imagine the horror of going through things like amputations and I know I don't want to get people all,
No.
everybody's like curling up their legs right now and closing their mouths like no one's coming into my mouth with anything weird. But okay, let's talk about food because
Definitely.
I know you love your fish. You are a pescatarian and you love your fish. And Portugal and Portuguese food, I know I don't get to eat it
Lots of seafood
allergy wise, but I thought, oh, Debbie's going there. She's munching down. She's having a good time.
Yes.
Did you?
Yes.
You have a good time?
Absolutely. The famous fish there is bacalhau, which is cod. And, you'll see it in every form and shape, every way cooked possible, and on every menu. And then tuna is also very popular, along with, shrimp and oysters and octopus. And, if you find meat, the meat is usually, it could be in stews, it could be grilled, it could be baked. And, tapas, or what they call petiscos in Portuguese, are all over the place, too. So, you can go into this, into a wonderful little place and just have some, of these tapas, which are wonderful to make a meal. I love doing that. And, there's wine galore because, you are in Portugal. And so you'll find lots and lots of different kinds of wine and port and all that wonderful stuff. And I did mention that there is a marketplace called the Timeout Market, which is great because you can go in this wonderful indoor market, and there are all these different stalls, and they all have different kinds of dishes, and it's a wonderful place if you want to sample anything from
that's cool.
From tapas to full meals to libations, whatever. And so it was recommended to us by InnTravel in our notes, and so we went there, and it really was a really good place to do that. I really highly recommend the Timeout Market.
So it's kind of like our food halls that we're getting into,
Yes.
Which is kind of European to me, right? The food halls that we have in this country. It is, yeah. That's cool. I mean, Albuquerque has an amazing. Well, now apparently they have more, but I remember going to the sawmill. That was
the sawmill is like my favorite place to go if I'm in Albuquerque. I love going there.
I love it too.
It's all local. It's local food,
Local, except for we had Peruvian food, but it was local people making it.
Yeah,
and then they had all the local beers were on tap because New Mexico makes fantastic beer, and so we had local beer paired with Peruvian food. And there were empanadas, which I thought, well, that's close as we can get. But they had flower people like selling flowers and arts and crafts and
they have like botanical drinks and just wonderful everything. But everything is made by it's locally made and purveyors are local.
That's
and so
the thing. And so
wonderful.
this Timeout Market sounds like that same kind of.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it stems from European roots. America didn't think of this. We stole that idea. But
I think we did.
And I mean it nicely. It's something. It's an
wonderful
inspiration.
Concept. Wonderful
Well done.
Concept.
Well said. Well said.
It. Yep.
Yeah, I do too. Like Pike Market. I keep saying it's the Pikes Peak thing is stuck in my head. Pike Marketplace. It's Pike Place Market. Thank you.
Yeah.
Debbie's got an article on that too, by the way, on blendradioandtv.com. But it's these, this Europe has this amazing way of doing markets. Africa too, India too. Marketplaces where you come together and go, hey, I have this to sell. I've got mangoes. I got the pineapples. Oh, speaking of pineapples, I'm just saying, apparently you had some pineapple cheese delights. going on.
Yes. Oh,
Did I bring
pineapple
up the
liqueur.
pineapple? Oh my
Ooh.
gosh.
That was on the
Pineapple
Azores.
liqueur.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah. Wonderful.
Oh,
That we can chat about when we chat about the Azores because
oh,
they
oh,
the pineapple. So, but
oh, sorry. I got
yeah, no,
excited.
it you know, I do love that concept of the whole marketplace, and you get people. You know, it's also a wonderful place where you can talk to people who've actually been growing what they are selling. You know, it's
That's the
great.
thing too. So you did this nice, like getting to have, I think it's a thing to do when you get to a city is to go to a place like that to get a little idea of what you're
Yes.
tasting. So when you go to a restaurant, you understand when you sit down and all of that. So it's kind of like a visitor bureau of food, like a welcome center of food and libations, right? But then
Yeah.
you moved on from Lisbon,
Yeah.
and I'm sorry, but I think you should have stayed there a lot longer, Debbie.
Oh
I just
God.
called.
Yeah.
See,
If
do you hear? I just called you Debbie because I normally call you Fire Monkey.
I know.
You
I
know,
know.
this is the thing. Debbie comes, Fire Monkey comes on the show. Debbie, it's FM Debbie Fire Monkey, and she is categorized in all these different ways in our files. And so sometimes I lose things. It's because FM Debbie Fire Monkey, and if I call her Debbie, I'm getting on her case. And my
Yes.
case is like, hello, number one, you went there without me. Number two, you left Lisbon too soon. I'm just saying because, like,
Of
did
course
you?
I did.
I
I could have
wanted you to
spent
go
days more.
to a concert. I wanted you
I
to
know.
go hear the music, not just to the museum. But
I
would you
know.
go back? Would you go back before we get to Sintra? Would you go back to Lisbon?
Of course, in a heartbeat.
Oh,
It,
I love
it's
to hear
it's
that.
fascinating, and I would spend more time there if I could. You know, I was doing this because it was part of a whole month-long trip where, I was in France, I was in Portugal. So it was like,
Oh man, you went on
how
a
can I,
massive trip.
yeah, how can I, fit all this in? And it's like sometimes you have to, you are, restricted by certain time situations, and so you
Hmm.
do what you can do, but you
But
also say to yourself, I want to go back,
when
So
do you sit in your hotel room once in a while and just pinch yourself like I just did this? Like,
normally I'll pinch myself when I'm actually in the experience, like,
oh, okay,
I'll say, oh my, I'll say, wow,
this
yeah,
is
are you
happening.
seeing this? Are you,
This is
this
real.
is real. This is crazy, kind of thing. So,
But I mean,
but I
you've done
do
ice
look back.
hotels to there, like to
Yes,
Portugal,
yes, yes,
So,
yeah.
I mean, do you ever sit back and just like have a cup of tea? Oh, you're in Santa Fe, margarita, and just go like, how many experiences have I had? You just did
I feel
Lisbon.
Yeah,
No.
I feel very fortunate for what I've been able to see, do, experience, touch, feel, smell, engage with people. I do feel very, very fortunate. Of course, I don't want to rest on any of those laurels because I'm like, there's
Yeah.
so much more I want to see and do and
Well,
feel and
I love that
smell.
you
So
also understand, like, you had 4 days, so make the most of it. Like Nancy and I are
yeah,
like that. And people are always like, well, you should have done this. You should have done. No,
uh,
you can't.
no,
You
you
can't do
can't do
everything.
everything, and
Like
so
I want you to do all these other things in Lisbon
yeah,
that I want to do. So I'm going to have to
yeah,
just go there. But,
yeah,
and that's the point. You've made me kind of like, hey, get your butt
right,
ski over there. And that's the thing. You went to
absolutely,
Sintra next, right? And so I
yeah.
love this that you got to just claim what you can do when you're there, no matter how
Right.
short the time is. Claim it, go for it,
You have
enjoy
to,
it
like
wholeheartedly.
you have to pick and choose. You have to
Mm,
say, okay, I've got this amount of time. What is really reasonable for me to see within this time? And I don't want to make myself crazy. I want to build in time to sit
mm,
in a cafe and enjoy a meal. I want to sit and watch people. I want, so I have to figure out, what is important to me to see on this first go around or a first taste of this destination. If I had all
Oh,
the
I
time
love
in the
it.
world, sure. But Sintra is, a lot of people when they go to Lisbon and they're there for several days in Lisbon, they'll take a day and they'll go to Sintra because it's really only about a 45-minute 50-minute train ride from Lisbon. So it's very easy to get there, and people will just go for the day and cram everything in. This InnTravel, they have, you spending 2 nights in Sintra, which I adored only because once all the people leave, that town is just quiet, peaceful, and it's beautiful, and you can really appreciate it without all the day trippers, so to speak. So, but Sintra is like a fairy tale. It's an enchanting town, and once again, it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and we stayed
That's
at a
amazing.
lovely hotel, boutique hotel, the Sintra Boutique Hotel, which is right steps away from the quaint area, the old town area, and you're there in Sintra to see the castles and the palaces, and there are a handful of them that are the hot spots. And once again, start early, book online if necessary, get your tickets, and have a method of way of you're going to approach this, because you do need to do that. And the Peña Palace is probably the number one site, and it is the most outrageous palace that I have ever seen. It's considered one of the 7 wonders of Portugal and a crown jewel, but I described it as a Ronald McDonald house on steroids.
Looking at this, I'm looking at the photos now. It's amazing. People, you've got to experience this. I want to experience it,
It's crazy. It's got the vivid hues, and I said it was kind of a schizophrenic whirlwind of mismatching types of elements. It's got the onion domes, and it's sneering gargoyles and battlements, and very very crazy place, but just so wildly wonderful, and built by or created by King Ferdinand II, who was a mad genius, and they defied all sorts of any type of rationality in terms of architectural order. But it's fascinating, and then of course they have this incredible park, the Peña Park, which is like 500 acres,
love
and
it.
it's gorgeous with pavilions and lakes and gardens, and you just can walk forever. So get your good walking shoes on for wherever you're going in Portugal.
Yeah, just looking at all the photos from that, it is like that too. And he went in a cave,
Oh my gosh! And the Moorish castle, which is way up on the top of the peaks, it's this unbelievable kind of very very imposing type of place, and it to me and then you climb way up there and you get this incredible panorama of the whole area. So that is an amazing place. And then the one castle that is very very also very bizarre is the Quinta de Regalia. I think it's Regalera. No, Regalera.
Yeah,
Quinta
yeah.
de Regalera, which is Quinta means like a castle or an estate. And so this guy, this man, his last name was Montero. He was this very eccentric millionaire, and so he was really into alchemy and masonry, and so he had this place designed almost kind of like a fun house, because there's everything. There's these hidden tunnels and secret passageways, but they conceal like symbolic elements. But the initiation wells are probably the most intriguing for visitors. You're going down into these almost underground towers with these circular stairs, but they were never used for water. They were used for ceremonial purposes. And there's a lot of mysticism associated. So it's wild, just wild that people have these things built.
I'm just really, really like looking and going. You have so many photos. From both. And everyone will do the. I don't know how to say Azores now. Azores,
Azores.
Yeah, I'm not going to get it right now after all of this time. But going through all the images and reading your articles, I'm just like, I need to go there. I feel like I need to go to Portugal for like a month. Would
Yes,
you say that?
You do. Yes.
Do you feel that way when you were there? Like, looking at
Since I've been twice and spent a good amount of time in, like I said, Porto and the Douro Wine Valley area. Portugal has several wonderful places to visit. Not even to mention the islands, but people you could spend several weeks in Portugal itself and enjoy the attractions. But it would be wonderful to spend an entire month devoted to the country.
how does it rank with you? Because I know, Oregon's a big deal with you. Where would where would
It's
it be?
apples and oranges, and I never compare.
You're so
I never
politically
compare.
correct. I know you're so politically correct. Good. No, and you shouldn't. And you shouldn't because, but
No.
God, I mean that palace is insane.
It is insane.
I can't.
They're all insane. It's crazy.
Listen, everyone, stay tuned. We're gonna make a jigsaw puzzle from one of it because, like, don't you think the jigsaw puzzle from that? Like, good luck with that. It's just, but it kind of reminds me of Salvador Dali in a weird way.
Yes.
Of like what he does, and oh my God, I am really jealous, right?
Well, you just need to go. All right, just do it.
And I know. I'm sorry. I need to stop saying jealous.
Anyone who's
it's
listening,
not a thing to do.
Anyone who's listening, I think Portugal is, one of the most charming and beautiful countries, and historically so rich. I want to mention just a quick note about the people because I think the people are so lovely. They're so welcoming. They're hospitable. They're kind. And everyone we talked to was so helpful, and it was wonderful. I really must put a plug in for the people of the Portuguese people because they are
I agree.
Really special, just special.
I think that the hospitality of places, especially, and even in Lisbon, right? Even though you're in a city,
it still still had wonderful people,
Yeah, whether you're in a city or a small town, we think small towns are only hospitable in this country, and that's not true. But it's just that kind of thing that we keep thinking,
Absolutely.
But would you say Lisbon too? I'd
say that we encountered many wonderful people who were very helpful and kind, and so I think the same goes. I've been in different parts of that country and I've had the same impression of the people, and to me that really it makes a difference for visitors and travelers who are coming from all parts of the world to have the host country there to be so hospitable, and I always want to point out when I feel like that is an exception. I think that the Portuguese people are an exception, really.
With in regards to Portugal, so you've been there before. This
right.
wasn't your first time going.
No. Like I said, I've been
now
to
I'm really jealous.
Parts of the country. This was several years ago when I did a part of a Spain and Portugal trip. But it's wonderful. I could go, and then I went to the Azores Islands as well, which is a very wild and magical place that many people don't get to when they go to Portugal because it is a couple hours off the mainland, and but and in any case, I've really wanted to go to those islands as well. I wanted to kind of complete the Portugal experience with those islands too. But I could easily go back, and I could go visit other places that I haven't been in the country.
It's just amazing.
It's not a huge country, so it isn't. It isn't like you're so overwhelmed by a big country that has so much. But Portugal is you can get around Portugal. There's trains, and you can get around quite easily.
I love that. I just love the variety of experiences you had. From the food, from the custard cakes, and all the way to going to gardens and a park and underground caves. I know you like caves. That's a thing for you. And to be able to have castles and boutique inns and all this different food, museums. You really had a big experience,
Yes.
which I think is
Yeah.
cool.
And I think for
In
people who
4
want a
days.
taste, if you want a taste of something, also InnTravel offers, longer tastes of, so to speak, of places, so they have a wide range of offerings for people. So if people want more than 4 days, they can certainly do more than 4 days. And so, what's nice is you can kind of pick and choose, which is the great asset to this company,
Mm. And everyone, the links to InnTravel are all in Debbie's article. And also, I'll put the link out in the show notes too. So it's intravel.co.uk. They have a 4-night self-guided walking trip. They have a 7-night self-guided walking trip. So all of that is linked up in Debbie's article, Fire Monkey's article, FM. She's got her names. So check that out. And she'll be back next month talking about the Azores. I'm going to have my new name. But we'll continue talking about these beautiful regions of Portugal that you went to. It's got to feel good you really conquered the America as a country during the pandemic. And then all of a sudden it was like, yes, I can go to Europe. And you just went, you hauled. You're like, I'm off to see the other side. And so, this was like your second time over since the pandemic kind of lifted.
Within a year, I think it's like we were there last summer. We spent 7 weeks in Europe. And so, this time we spent almost a month in Europe once again. So it, to me, was, I could go to Europe at the drop of there's so much to see. But, there's also so much to see, as I know in this country, there's so much still I need to see and want to see, So, wherever you are in the world, I think there's so much to see. And, there's always wonderful things about places that aren't even that far away too, So.
Yeah, exactly. Just do what you can. And, and everybody, Debbie's article again is on blendradioandtv.com, linked in the show notes. She will be back here on